Hello and welcome to a December 2022 update video. I had initially created a video for Christmas. Unfortunately, as I'll explain in a minute, that didn't go according to plan. Video was ready to be released and then things changed on the ground here. This is video number 2. We've had a very interesting few days here, a few weeks. We got some very heavy snow here on the west coast of America. Several feet of snow, in fact. It was been wonderful. It was like that soft powdery snow. Never really got a chance to freeze. We had rain immediately after that, and it's been raining ever since. That's meant lots of time for the hobby. Now the plan was originally for us to go down to Dallas, Texas for Christmas, on Christmas Day, to spend some time with my in-laws, but the chaos caused by the snow in the preceding week here in the Washington area, specifically at Seattle-Tacoma Airport, meant that our flight got cancelled the morning of. So we were all the way down in Seattle. We were at the airport at like 4 AM, and then we got told our flight's not happening. So we came back home again. We spent Christmas here at the house. We're not prepared to spend Christmas here, so it was a bit of a dull affair. But the good thing was I got to paint toys, right? We sort of made up for it on Boxing Day, and then the other thing that we were able to do since we were now home was actually go and enjoy the Boxing Day sales here in Canada. Well, I say here in Canada, there in Canada, 2 miles away in Canada, and go and visit my new favourite place on earth, Imperial Hobbies, next to Vancouver Airport. It's absolutely brilliant. I've met the owner, really nice bloke. Fantastic store. It's got everything you need. My wife loves it because of the board games, so we spent a lot of money there on board games in the last few weeks. I love it because it has a lot of wargaming stuff, and it's not just the usual GW stuff. It's like they've got all the Vallejo colours, they've got loads of miniatures for historical periods. They've obviously got Flames of War, but they've also got like Old Glory stuff and Perry's and all that. Anyway, so that was our Christmas plans scuppered essentially. So we've actually pushed back our visit to next week. So this is now a New Year's video, but I hope everybody got lots of really great toys for Christmas. And are you scratching yourself now? Got lots of really great toys for Christmas and have had a wonderful time. You know, doing whatever it is you do around the Christmas time. If that involves getting together with family, having a nice meal, or painting toy soldiers. You know, I just hope that everything's been really great for all of you all, and that the weather hasn't been too rough. Wherever you may be. Since I've now had the opportunity to actually do Christmas here at home, I guess I can show you the toys that I got. So we went to Imperial Hobbies. They run a 25% off Boxing Day sale, which you know, when it comes to plastic crack or metal crack, depending on how you want to phrase it, actually ends up being quite a good deal. So I went with my wife, and she was very kind enough to get me the following bits and pieces. She got me this box, which is the French Napoleonic Infantry Battalion 1807 to 14, which is kind of more in keeping with the period that I was aiming for. The other box that I had from several years ago, for which I did a review, is the Bardin regulation uniform, I believe, but it's a slightly later period. Not that it really matters all that much. But this is a box I don't have. Sorry, it's a lot of glare on the light there. This is a box I do not have. So I'm looking forward to having a go at these. I've already put one together, one of the standard line fellas, and the goal is to see how this kit stacks up against the other one. But then also, I'll get to this in a bit when I get to the hobby update, but basically I spent a lot of this month just working on recipes, as I call them, right? How to paint various colors and how to paint various miniatures. Okay, the second box of toys that I got was a box of Perry British Napoleonic Line Infantry. Here we go, you get the glare off there. And this is a fantastic little kit. I had a look through it, and I've sort of put one together, well, two actually, one of the riflemen and one of the line infantry, one of the center companies. The thing again, and this one of the differences between this and the other kit is that this one is more of a firing line kit. So this is blokes with who are in fire action poses like reloading or whatever. So again, I'll do a review of this. I have some thoughts on this box, one of which is pose related, and the other one which is to do with the little leaflets. And I think this must be quite an early release for the Perrys, because judging when I compare this leaflet to others, it's very different, a lot more sparse. But anyway, really cool as well. My wife insisted I get those, which is nice when she insisted I get the toys, right? And then finally, Victrix Napoleonic Infantry. They didn't have the Perry ones, but we got this one instead. I've done some Victrix in the past, and they are pretty good. They're great value, number one, and number two, again, I have some thoughts in terms of detail versus the Perrys. Suffice to say, I think the Perrys are really finely detailed miniatures, but the detail tends to be quite fine and shallow. And when I say shallow, I don't mean it in a negative sense. I just mean that it's not very conducive to just washes as much as Victrix are. The Victrix faces, for instance, have like very craggy faces, so they've lots of depth, which makes it easy to use things like washes and stuff to create nice deep shadows, which is for a sort of good wargaming standard, which is what you want. The Perrys tend to be much more connoisseur level miniatures. In other words, they're ones that it's expected that you're going to put some decent brushwork in, but the faces tend to be a lot shallower, like the lips aren't quite as pronounced, and the eyes and the nose, there's not as much like cragginess for sort of helping you create those shadows. You have to bring a lot of those shadows yourself. So I got this and I've started painting one of these up, because again, one of the things I'll talk about for this month is to do with recipes. So what I'll do now is I'll shift the camera, we'll talk about recipes for a little bit, and then we'll talk about what's been going on the painting desk. Okay, so I promised you a chat about recipes, and this is essentially what I've been working on for the bulk of this month. The first thing is, this is an American War of Independence British regular, and one of the things I've been trying to get right is a way to paint large white surfaces like these trousers. It's a bit glarish here, so it's not great light, but see if I can get a bit of focus. But the idea is to figure out how to do it in such a way that it doesn't look sort of overly cartoonish. I want it to look relatively natural, and then also the idea of playing with texture. So what I did here was I utilized a painting method I found from Dr. Faust's painting clinic on how he did the breeches for his Americans, his AWI Americans. And what he does is he uses a like a flat brown base coat, undercoat I should say. Then he base coats it with Iraqi sand, followed by pale sand, I think, and then like a mix of pale sand and white. I think you could probably go to ivory or off-white if you wanted to as your final highlight, depending on how bright I guess you wanted that white to be. But the idea was to come up with a recipe that I like, that's relatively time efficient. So the only thing that I need to figure out here is if there's any mechanism for me to build in a wash, because one of the things that I'm not happy with, I hope you can see it here, is if you look at like the pockets and the buttons, there's a bit of shadow in there, and I've managed to try and create some, but because the highlights are quite subtle between the various paint tones, which is kind of what I want. I want a gradual highlight. I don't want it to be too stark, but what I do need is a little bit of either black lining around the pockets. The buttons will get painted black and then repainted whatever metallic color they're going to be, so that's not so much of an issue, but it's more the pockets and then just where the waistcoat hits the overalls. So I'd like maybe there to be a bit deeper shadow there and in the sort of crotch area, and then but everywhere else looks pretty good. Again, you don't really see it in the light of the camera. I'm not sure, that the light might be messing with it, but basically it looks quite good in person. My wife really likes it. She says it looks amazing, so I'll take her word for it since she's not a painter. The other thing I've been working on recipes for is the actual red coats themselves. I tried loads of recipes. I haven't found quite what I'm looking for yet. This is a bit too bright for my taste. The other thing again is this problem. This is a Perry miniature, and I alluded to this earlier. The thing with the Perrys is they're really good miniatures, right? But one thing that is quite frustrating when you're painting them and you're trying to look for cheap and easy ways to get it done is they don't have, like if you look at the sleeve, it only has one really solid deep crease there. Everything else is quite subtle, so when you're painting you need to exaggerate the highlights if you want it to pop at range. With this one I essentially did a method that I found using scarlet and cavalry brown and whole red and all sorts of colors, and then in the end it looked really drab and faded, like way more drab and faded than I wanted to, so I ended up just slapping red ink on it and kind of ruined the look. And the reason I put the ink on was to try and exaggerate the folds, but it didn't really do what I wanted it to do. So I'm still kind of work in progress there. I haven't quite figured out what I want to do with the red yet, but so again, like I said, very much a recipe month. You know, the way I work is I tend to figure out a method and then just repeat that again and again once I'm satisfied with it, and I haven't quite reached that stage. With my poles, with my World War II poles, that was not an issue. I got the recipe down pretty easy, and then I was just able to crank them out. So here we're going for something a little bit different. So if I put these two side by side, what you can see is the French line infantryman on the left, I've used a colder white to try and do his trousers and his waistcoat. So, and then obviously the cross belts, which are white leather. And here I've just started. I haven't finished yet, but I've just started with an Arctic grey base coat. But you can already see how much cooler that white is than the one on the right. I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. I think with the French it works well because I think blue and white, obviously both coldish colours. Red is a warm colour, so I think it'll play nicely with this sort of warmer tone. And then I think, but then with an Austrian it becomes complicated. So now we have an Austrian here, and this is the Austrian in the this is also an Arctic grey base coat. But I think what I may try and do with the Austrians is actually err on the side of using the method that I utilized with this British guy's overalls. And the reason for that is that because the Austrian is largely just a quote-unquote white uniform, what I need to do is create a textural difference between the uniform itself, which was presumably some kind of woolen material, and the belt straps, which are leather, right? And they would have chalked the leather or whatever. But the point is that I think for the Austrians, this is just an Austrian line infantryman. Probably going to try out using the sort of like warmer white just to see where I can come in. And then the nice thing about this white here that I've been working on is, I think the degree to which it becomes white is just based upon what your final highlight is. So in other words, if you end with a final highlight of say pale sand and white as a highlight, then maybe if you took it to ivory or off-white, that would kick it up a notch. So I'll play with that for the month, and we'll see for the next month, and we'll see how we get on. But the principle here is that once we nail the recipes down, we can just start doing stuff in a sort of much more effective manner, just getting it done fast. Speaking of recipes, the other recipe I'm desperately searching for at the moment is a recipe for black African skin, specifically for Xhosa skin, the Amaxhosa in southeast South Africa, like in the Eastern Cape. I found some recipes for Zulu skin. It's typically a little bit darker than what I'm looking for. The Xhosa tend to be a little bit lighter skin tone color, just in general. Not that that means much because skin tones vary so wildly even amongst the same tribes people in South Africa. But anyway, I tried a bunch of different recipes here. On the right here we've got some Empress miniatures, Xhosa from the Iron Dukes miniatures range, and then on the left here these are Perry Cape Frontier Xhosa, which are a little bit more chunkier than these ones here. I actually favor the Empress miniatures a little bit more because there's a sort of problem when it comes to African warrior peoples. I suppose of course I want warrior peoples, but there's a sort of idea of these Zulus that are super hench and dudes are super muscular, whereas like this sort of slightly scrawnier, more kind of, I mean the highlights don't do it justice, but the slightly scrawnier sort of slight shape of the man is probably a bit more accurate than these sort of ultra buff, like hench blokes who look like they spend all the time in the gym. Anyway, so I tried a bunch of different recipes. This one here ended up with a very greyish skin tone for the fella on the left, and I wasn't very happy with that. Way too dark. Guy on the right looks, I think, decent from a distance and at the back, but on the front just a bit too much flatness. I think I need to figure out the highlighting better. And then I repeated the same method, this method here on this guy, and then I used a slightly different method for this fella. And this looks okay, but I think this is a bit too dark as a tone. And the reason I'm obsessing over these skin tones with these miniatures is that these Xhosa are fought largely naked, so there's a lot of skin that needs to be covered. So if I can't get the skin to my tastes now, I'm never going to get it to my tastes, if you know what I mean. I'm not prepared to repaint stuff, so I want to get it done right the first time. So one of the things I'm looking at is looking at the spectrum of like black skin tones in Africa, specifically the Bantu tones, which you find from like the south of the Great Lakes towards obviously the tip of South Africa. If you think of like the Zulu as being like the middle point, the Xhosa are a little bit off here to like the yellowy, orangey side of the spectrum. So I'm trying to fill in this space here, the gap here, in terms of getting more towards this skin tone here. That's sort of like a much softer, paler brown, that ranges anything from like what we would think of as a Zulu skin tone down to almost like a Khoisan-ish adjacent skin tone.
So yeah, again, this month has been all about figuring out recipes, and I'm still not quite happy with the skin yet. So that's one of the reasons why I have just these 4 miniatures up, is I can just repaint them and repaint them and repaint them until I get them down. If anybody has any suggestions for colors or recipes, so to speak, for painting the skin, please do let me know. I am all ears. Obviously, the other thing I've been working on is my World War II stuff. What I'll do is I'll put up some pictures of completed stuff this month. But on the topic of recipes again, I'm kind of zeroed in on my German. These guys' helmets obviously haven't been done. You can see my fingers have been worn the paint off. But I've nailed down what I think is my recipe for the reed green tunics and the field grey tunics. This one's not finished highlighted yet, but yeah, I managed to work on that. The only part that's still outstanding on these Germans that I haven't quite figured out yet is this rolled up Zeltbahn section here that some of the troops have. It's a tent section essentially, and it had like a camo pattern, and I haven't quite figured out how to paint that yet. But I just wanted to comment quickly on some of the miniatures here. So this is Crusaders miniatures, because they do like an early war German range, and they are phenomenal. They are probably some of my favorite miniatures ever. They suffer a little bit from that Perry-ish thing that I mentioned earlier, which is that the facial detail can sometimes be a little bit shallow. By contrast, oh man, I love these guys. These are Black Tree Designs miniatures. Their Germans are just sublime. I love this guy. If you look here, you can see how the thumbs are tucked behind the straps on this tripod that he's carrying, and that is just one of those little details. It's just so magical. The fellow looks like he's exerting himself. He's got lots of deep depth, chiseled out depth to work with. And then here are some other Black Tree Design Germans as well. So you've got, here's the rest of this gun, this SF MG34 group, and you can just see like the faces are just fantastic. They're a little bit more, I don't want to say cartoonish. That's probably not the right word. They're a bit more kind of like characterful in terms of their faces. They're less placid, but I kind of like that, and it makes a nice change from the Crusader miniatures. Not that I don't like the Crusader ones, I love them. It's just that this is a different style of thing, of sculpting, and there's just like a little bit more of a depth to when I say depth, I mean they're more craggy and sort of, they got a bit more kind of profile, if you will. But they look phenomenal. They really do. I've enjoyed painting these miniatures immensely. So yeah, some of the things I'm working on the German side is to try and finish up a platoon, and then the idea is to figure out the recipes for things like I'm trying to figure out how to do leather. Actually, you know what? I'll show you a miniature for that. So I talked a lot about texture in this video, and one of the things that brought it to mind was painting this naval infantry brigade for the Soviet chap. This is a big man. I put them on these little hexagonal bases because they stand out nicely. So this is for the sort of Crimea campaign. And what I did here, I hope you can see it, is let me zoom in a little bit, and hopefully you can see what I'm talking about. So if you look at the tunic and the trousers, I've actually used different colors to highlight the black, because everything is black on this miniature. Everything. The boots are black, the trousers are black, the tunic is black, the cap is black, right? And so what I did was I tried, by using different highlighting colors, to create a difference in texture between the more canvassy jacket and the woolen trousers and the leather boots. Now, the leather boots I'm not 100% happy with. I'm still working on that. But like you can see that they're quite exaggerated highlights, and the idea there is to try and just create some depth on these black miniatures, which are fundamentally quite flat, right? Black is not a great color to highlight. This is a Black Tree Design miniature. Again, that's those faces I'm talking about. It looks very nice, little angles on the cheeks there, easy to highlight, a little bit cartoonish, but I kind of like it. But yeah, so that's what I try to do. Now, I use a sort of bluish tone here. I'm not 100% set on that yet. I may change that. And then this is more for the canvas. I've used more traditional grays. But I'm thinking what I could do is vary the types of grays that I utilize. So sort of brownish grays, and then using mahogany color as a highlight, or brown to highlight these boots might be a good way to show worn leather. But the idea here is to sort of try to show a difference in texture. And where I could probably try and accomplish that most clearly is on things like the cap, which here would have been made of material, cloth, and then the peak, which is usually made out of like a leather right now. In an ideal world, a patent leather, but let's say just the leather here, the peak. That's kind of where I want to show that difference in textures. Now you don't really notice it all that much, but when you look at them sort of from a distance, it gets quite a pleasing effect. Not sure that I like this bluish toned highlight that I did. I may change it. For now this miniature's painted, so I'm not going to touch them again. But as I move forward with these uniforms, these Soviet uniforms, I may come back and fiddle with the recipe there. And then in this case, it is something worth repainting. It's come back, zero it to black, and then just do the highlights again. It's not a big deal. So yeah, this is one of the things I finished this month. And then also this guy here. This is a Warlord Games Soviet naval infantry guy. I've done him in the blue jacket, which is a different model jacket. I've tried using the same trouser highlight colors and followed most of the colors that I used on the officer that leads them. And I did like the little stripy jumper there and the dicky, and that looks pretty good, I think. Actually, the only part of this model that I'm not happy with is the bandolier. Doesn't look great to me. It looks a bit kind of flattish, but again, the detail isn't very sharp and it's very uneven. The bandolier bullet slots aren't equally sculpted, and then the face is probably the biggest disappointment for me. It's a very sort of pinched face. There's not a lot of detail to it. It sort of just pinches towards the mouth. But I figured, you know what, he's just a random infanteer, so who cares really. At the end of the day, he looks good enough. If we think about it, this is the sort of distance we're going to be viewing him from most of the time, and we're probably going to be looking at him like that, so who really cares. Sometimes the miniature just isn't to your taste, and it's okay to say that, and this is one of them where Warlord have been very all over the shop. I know a lot of people have said the same thing, but I think as they've acquired ranges and then they've had other ranges in their own range sculpted by different sculptors, the style just drifts all over the place. So I like Paul Hicks stuff, but I don't like some of the newer stuff that Warlord has. And that's fine. Not everybody likes everything. Like, there's a large element of style in miniatures, so it's okay to sometimes not like a given style, right? So for me personally, I think that the guy on the left is way cooler and much more fun to paint than the guy on the right, and that's just my taste, and people like what they like, right? So you can get mad about that. The final thing for my show and tell this month is my War of Spanish Succession or Melburian regiments, or battaglia that I did. So here we have the 1st Foot Guards, and then here we have the 3rd regiment, I believe, which is the Buffs. So yeah, we have the 1st Foot Guards here with their yellow laced tricorns, gold laced tricorns, and then at the back we have the 3rd Regiment of Foot, which at the time was Churchill's own Buffs. These are Bacchus miniatures, 6mm, and I got them at Warfare in Farnborough when I was over in the UK earlier this year. These are 2 sort of test battalions that I did. Battaglia, I suppose, is plural. So looking here, you can see that some of the key differences between them, I'll just sort of put them at a slant, is that the battalion at the front was the one that was done first. What I did was I initially glued them with gaps between the ranks, and it became a real nightmare to try and fill in with basing material the gaps between them. So for the second one here, the 3rd regiment I should say, what I did was I shunted everybody back a little bit. Now I think that I've gone a bit too far back, so I might for the next one bring them a little bit forward, and then there's a bit of gap at the back as well. But I think they look really great. They don't all have to look the same, that's fine, troops are in motion or whatever. But this is for a sort of Blenheim type project that I'm working on, where I bought a starter pack from Bacchus, and I thought I'd try my hand at 6mm, and I think 6mm is really good for the War of Spanish Succession, because the uniforms, let me show you what I mean. The troops, now obviously the closer we get, the less nice these look, but one of the cool things is that because really the cuffs are just enormous buckety cuffs, they look fantastic from a range, and the trousers, the breeches also have color, so there's lots of nice little color details on these miniatures that look good from a distance, right? So you can see here, for instance, you can see the cuffs from the back, you can see the backs of their legs, that looks really great, and then the red coats look fantastic. So I was quite happy with that, actually. It didn't take that long. I actually timed out how long it took me to do the second unit here, end to end. So that means from the moment I start putting paint on them to the minute they are finished, like as in finished, that means flags and everything, base is done. It took me just under 4 hours. So just over the course of 2 days, basically, I just smashed these out here. These ones took a little bit longer because I was still figuring out how to paint 6mm. It's a very different method, but I'm quite chuffed with that. So what my idea here with the 6mm thing is, I'm just going to keep cranking out units as I'm doing other stuff. And the nice thing about these is that like they tend to be quite like machinable, in the sense that I can just sort of, it's just dab 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 red, dab 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 facing color, you know, whatever, and I can just rinse my way through a unit in pretty short order. And the nice thing about it is there's this wonderful dopamine effect where, you know, in about 2 days time you end up with something like this and you're like, oh look, I painted a unit. so it's nice to kind of get there, but I'll talk more about the War of Spanish Succession when we get there. For the moment now I'm just going to be working on infantry battalion to try and crank those out. But I'm currently doing, as you can see here, there's 12 per base, so 36 per unit for infantry. And I've based them on 30mm by 20mm frontages. A large part of this month was spent on trying to figure out what base sizes I want to use. This mat of mine is amazing. It has 10mm squares, so I spent a lot of time dry fitting before I finally placed an order with Litco here in the States to get the bases I was going to use, and luckily it coincided with Black Friday, so money saved all around. So that's basically what I've been working on for this month. So I'll cut the camera back now to my ugly mug and we'll just finish up our chat. Well, there we have it. That's the year done, basically. So the only thing left for me to do is to wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I hope that you have lots to keep you busy over the this holiday period. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, I hope the weather is agreeable when it comes to painting. And hopefully you'll hear from me soon again. I'm going to be on the road for the next 2 weeks. I have a video in production at the moment which is all about how to keep doing the hobby even when you're not at home and even when you can't paint, right? And you'll see that a lot of what I've been talking about paint recipes feeds into that conversation. So all that remains for me to do is say thank you for watching, and we'll speak soon. Okay, now I have to wait for you so that I can carry on with the video. Do you mind? Do you mind? I'm trying to do the video here. Oh, you're not helping me, are you? You're just being an encumbrance. Yeah, you're a naughty girl being cheeky. Now you want to be on the camera too. Okay. Yeah, everybody loves you too. You're very photogenic. Yep, agreed. Yep, very much agreed. Yep, okay. Good job, good girl. Okay. Alright, go sit down. Go lie on your baby. Go lie on your baby.